Check out my mug. I don't think I showed any of you this mug yet, but if you can guess where this mug is from, leave it in the comment section down below. I will give you respect points. So this video is to address the question that I've been getting a lot. It's like an FAQ almost. How has work been? How has business been? It's a very legitimate, fair question because the economy freaking sucks right now. Yeah, so the lockdown happened in the province of Ontario around mid-March. That's when we went into lockdown. And before that, thankfully, we had some shoots going on with clients. And right when we went into lockdown, the government was like, this is gonna be 2 weeks. So I'm like, perfect. Naturally, editing is a quarantine activity. You could do it at home. It's a perfect quarantine activity. So it's pretty much business as usual. And the only thing that changed was we had a bunch of meetings, like good meetings lined up at the end of March that all got rescheduled. And that sucked because pretty much I'm still left wondering whether or not, all that momentum we had going in this year will still exist after this lockdown. I'm just gonna have to continue to trust God's will and just pray and hope that, there's a reason for everything. So yeah. So after we edit all these client videos, that 2-week interval ends and the government started extending another 2-week interval. So basically that was the kind of the whole pandemic really felt like it was, as a business, it really felt like, all right, 2-week intervals, and then 1-month intervals. So there's a lot of guessing and like, when are we gonna open up again? And the government was like, we're not gonna give you a clear date because we have no idea as well. So it was a whole guessing game and it was all up in the air and for very fair reasons, right? So in April, May was a bunch of, in terms of business, we got a mix of clients. So we had clients that were very cautious about whether or not they should spend their budget. And then we also had customers that were very eager to start filming right away. But we couldn't film because we were in stage 1. And in stage 1, you're not allowed to film, only in stage 2. April and May were mainly just me, figuring out things in the back end of the business and also focused more on my creative skills. I learned a bit of Blender. I made this little 3D rocket animation that I learned off tutorials from TG Cookie. I also worked on some virtual tour products that I was working on before lockdown. A lot of self-building and answering emails and waiting patiently. But in terms of, the normal type of workflow and process, that wasn't there. Everything felt like it was on hold. Finally, we hit June, and June was when things started picking up. There was a cloud of concern and anxiety, basically, in terms of, and it made a lot of sense because large to small corporations, they began to cut their employees, they began to reduce payroll, and there was CERB and all of that. So as you can imagine, marketing dollar isn't exactly there when the majority of consumers aren't really spending their money that much. They're being more cautious with it. But there was definitely certain types of industries that thrived during this time. And obviously restaurants weren't doing that well. Grocery stores were doing very well during this time. So you could kind of imagine which industries were pulling in more revenue than other industries. And for us, thankfully, the customers that were eager were in those industries that were thriving. I'm thankful for that opportunity that, right after lockdown, we were ready to go. We could go on set and film again. And obviously some of our existing clients, they had to delay a little longer. And so June was a whole waiting game of waiting for the government to announce when we're moving from stage 1 to stage 2. And stage 2 was when we could start filming again. But the rules were we had to keep it under 10 people. Follow the PPE guidelines, and if they weren't in our social bubble, we had to physically distance ourselves from them. All fair rules. So we finally hit the end of June, and the biggest adjustment was filming with a mask. And I remember I would go at a usual pace, like the way I carry my equipment, the way I talk. I had to adjust a lot because the way I carried my equipment and the way I talked on set, like there's like a usual pace that you're familiar with, but I remember I was going at that pace and I had to slow down because I couldn't breathe. I was like, basically like that. And yeah, and it was also the summer. It's still the summer, but you know, all that heat too. So I was learning and practicing and refiguring out how to breathe again. But overall, the shoot was, you know, very fun, interesting, and it just reminded me again of how interesting it is to just go out and film and be in different environments all the time. Like that's one of the most exciting things about video production. One thing we had to be mindful of was we were filming with people in the senior demographic, so we couldn't, like that was the most concerning thing for myself. Everyone on my team, like we were all very mindful and respectful, and we all wore a mask at all times. Even though it was, you know, very stuffy at times, I just knew that if we took it off, it would be dangerous. We just tried our best to be respectful of them and the guidelines and everything. And also trusting that the government was correct on opening the economy at that specific time. So yeah, here we are now, and going forward, I think one of the biggest things I'm thinking about is how do we adapt to this new world of communication. We've been communicating a lot more digitally, and it's a statistical fact that video content has been more in demand as we progress. But I do believe that how we communicate and how we consume video content has changed in the past years. So I'm interested in seeing, and I'm curious on how, like what the new solutions are. And so that's kind of like my thought process going forward. If you have any kind of thoughts or suggestions on like that topic, or just in general, your experience filming videos in a pandemic setting, let me know in the comment section down below. Overall, there is still like a concern on the whether or not the economy will recover. And it's a very strange time in this world, especially with, you know, COVID, Black Lives Matter, whole cancel culture. You know, for myself, like, I'm just trying to pray more and work on my kind of spiritual journey as well. But yeah, I hope all of you are staying safe during this very strange time, and I'll see all of you in the next video. This is your boy iTurnsEye signing out. Peace.